It was 11:19 p.m. in the Gulf of Oman, and the water was doing something that water in this part of the world does in October that makes anti-submarine warfare genuinely difficult: layering. The Gulf of Oman in autumn develops pronounced thermal stratification, a warm surface layer down to approximately 40 meters, a steep thermocline between 40 and 80 meters where the temperature drops sharply, and a cold, deep layer below that. Sound in water does not travel in straight lines. It bends toward colder, denser water, following acoustic refraction gradients that create shadow zones. Volumes of ocean where a hull-mounted sonar looking down from the surface cannot hear what is happening because the acoustic energy bends away from the target before it gets there. A submarine commander who understands the local oceanography and positions his boat in the right depth band can, in theory, use the thermocline as an acoustic cloak. Sitting below it, looking up, while surface forces look down and hear nothing useful. The commanding officer of the IRIS Fateh, a Fateh-class submarine of the Islamic Republic of Iran Navy, understood this. He had studied the Gulf of Oman's thermal structure for years. He had practiced this approach in exercises in the Caspian Sea and in the shallower waters of the Persian Gulf, run-in drills designed specifically to exploit the acoustic geometry of stratified water against simulated adversary surface forces. Tonight, he was not in a drill. Tonight, he was in the actual Gulf of Oman, at 65 meters depth, just below the thermocline, where the cold water layer would bend his own acoustic emissions downward and away from the surface, and where his passive sonar could look up through the thermocline at the acoustic signatures of the surface ships above him. The Fateh class is Iran's most advanced domestically produced submarine, a medium-range vessel displacing approximately 600 tons submerged, armed with torpedo tubes capable of launching both heavyweight torpedoes and the UT-27 torpedo, as well as mines. She is not a large submarine by the standards of the major naval powers. She is not particularly quiet by those standards either. But she is real, she is operational, and the Islamic Republic of Iran Navy has invested significant institutional effort in developing the submarine warfare doctrine that her commanding officer was now attempting to execute. Use the Gulf of Oman's challenging acoustic environment. Use the thermocline. Use the patience and skill of a trained crew, and get close enough to a United States Navy carrier strike group to prove that the threat is real. Or, in the scenario that the IRGC strategic planners had been gaming for years, to do considerably more than prove it. The USS George H.W. Bush, CVN 77, had entered the Gulf of Oman 18 hours earlier, transiting from the North Arabian Sea with Carrier Strike Group 2. The Bush was a significant presence. Nimitz-class, full air wing embarked, the cruiser USS Hugh City with 122 VLS cells, 3 Arleigh Burke-class destroyers, and the anti-submarine warfare assets that every Carrier Strike Group carries specifically, because the threat from submarines is never theoretical in this part of the world. The Iranian Submarine Force, small by global standards, comprising a mix of Russian-designed Kilo-class boats, domestically built Fateh and Ghadir-class vessels, and the midget submarines that the IRGC operates as a separate force, had been a consistent feature of American threat assessments in the Arabian Gulf region for decades. The U.S. Navy took Iranian submarines seriously. It took them seriously enough to have practiced against them, studied them, developed specific tactics and sensors for them, and positioned in the Gulf of Oman strike group with an ASW posture that reflected the real assessment of the threat rather than a diplomatic one. The strike group's anti-submarine warfare architecture was layered and redundant. 2 MH-60R Seahawk helicopters from HSM-77, the Saberhawks, were airborne on rotational ASW patrol. 1 covering the northern sector of the strike group's operating area, 1 covering the southern, each equipped with the AQS-22 airborne low-frequency sonar system, a dipping sonar that can be lowered from the hovering helicopter into the water to listen at depth below the thermocline in precisely the shadow zone that a submarine commander would try to use as concealment. The AQS-22 is specifically designed for this environment. Its low-frequency active sonar mode can penetrate thermal layers that defeat hull-mounted sonars, sending acoustic energy into the cold, deep layer and listening for the return from a submarine hull. A P-8, a Poseidon maritime patrol aircraft, was orbiting at 18,000 feet north of the formation. Its sonobuoy dispensers, loaded with a mix of passive and active buoys, laid in a barrier pattern across the northern approach sector. And beneath the surface, running at 200 meters depth on the western edge of the strike group's ASW screen, USS Texas, SSN 775, a Virginia-class fast-attack submarine, was conducting her own passive acoustic search in the frequency bands most useful against Iranian submarine signatures. The IRIS Fateh had entered the Gulf of Oman from the Strait of Hormuz 4 days earlier, running deep and slow during daylight hours, using the strait's heavy commercial traffic noise to mask her own acoustic signature during the transit. Her commanding officer had positioned her 40 nautical miles northeast of the strike group's projected track 12 hours before the Bush entered the Gulf, then gone quiet. Ultra quiet. Machinery on minimum power, crew movement restricted. The boat drifting on the thermocline at 65 meters, listening. The plan was to let the carrier group come to him rather than maneuver toward it, keeping his own acoustic signature as low as possible while his passive sonar built a picture of the American formation's approach. It was a professional plan, carefully thought out, based on real understanding of the acoustic environment and the limitations of American hull-mounted sonar against a submarine positioned below the thermocline in stratified water. In different circumstances, against a less capable adversary, it might have worked. At 10:44 p.m., 35 minutes before this story's opening moment, the MH-60R Seahawk operating the northern sector ASW patrol executed a scheduled dipping sonar deployment 22 nautical miles northeast of the Bush's position. The AQS-22 system lowered its transducer array through the warm surface layer and the thermocline and into the cold deep water at 80 meters depth, then went active, transmitting a low-frequency acoustic pulse that expanded outward through the cold layer in a sphere of sound, looking for the metallic return of a submarine hull. The active pulse propagated through the cold layer at approximately 1,490 meters per second. It reached the Fateh's hull at 10:44 p.m. and 23 seconds. The return echo, reflecting off the submarine's pressure hull and sail structure, traveled back to the AQS-22 transducer in another 23 seconds. The AQS-22's acoustic processor classified the return in 1.8 seconds. Submarine, contact, metallic hull, bearing northeast, range approximately 3.4 kilometers from the dipping point. The Seahawk crew transmitted the contact report on the ASW coordination net at 10:45 p.m. The report was in the strike group ASW commander's display, in the P-8A crew's tactical picture, and in the passive sonar operator's station aboard USS Texas within seconds. Everyone in the American ASW network had the contact. The Fateh's commanding officer did not yet know he had been found. He knew something was wrong at 10:46 p.m. when his sonar operators reported an active sonar transmission from above, the characteristic frequency and pulse pattern of an airborne dipping sonar system. The AQS-22's active pulse had given his crew warning of the detection by its very existence. He ordered an immediate course change and increased to 8 knots, trying to open the range from the dipping sonar contact point and reposition in the acoustic shadow. 8 knots was a mistake in the specific way that desperation produces mistakes. At 8 knots, a Fateh-class submarine's radiated noise signature increases dramatically, moving from the near-silent drift mode into a regime where propeller noise and machinery vibration become acoustically significant. The cold layer that had been hiding him from hull-mounted sonars above now worked against him. It carried his acoustic signature horizontally through the deep sound channel, broadcasting his new course and speed to every passive sonar receiver in the vicinity. USS Texas heard him at 10:47 p.m. The Virginia-class fast attack submarine's AN/B QQ-10 passive sonar, operating in the deep cold layer at 200 meters depth, had been searching the frequency bands associated with Iranian submarine types for the previous 6 hours. When the Fateh went to 8 knots and her propulsion system began generating the broadband noise of a submarine running at speed, the Texas's sonar operators had a contact within 60 seconds. Bearing northwest, range estimated at 18 nautical miles based on signal strength and propagation modeling. Track developing as the target's course and speed became apparent from the evolving bearing rate. The Texas's commanding officer was in the control room before the contact report had finished being typed. Texas had been invisible to the Fateh throughout. Running at 200 meters on 3 knots, with her own systems in the meticulous ultra-quiet condition that Virginia-class crews trained to maintain in precisely this tactical scenario, the Texas had generated a radiated noise level that the Fateh's passive sonar, looking upward through the thermocline at surface contacts, had no useful geometry to detect. The Fateh was looking in the wrong direction for the threat that mattered most. Iranian ASW doctrine, developed primarily in response to surface ship threats and focused on the shallow water environments of the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz, did not adequately account for the possibility of an American fast attack submarine operating in the deep cold layer below the Iranian boat, listening up. The Texas was not above the Fateh. She was below her and to the west, in a position that the Fateh's sonar geometry could not interrogate without repositioning. And repositioning was no longer a quiet option. At 10:52 p.m., the P-8A Poseidon deployed a second sonobuoy barrier 8 nautical miles northeast of the Fateh's new track, establishing a passive listening fence that the submarine would have to cross if she continued on her current heading. The sonobuoys were in the water before the Fateh reached the barrier line, listening in the cold layer frequency band, their acoustic data transmitted in real time to the P-8A and from there to the full ASW coordination net. When the Fateh crossed the barrier line at 10:58 p.m., 3 sonobuoys acquired her simultaneously, providing a triangulated position fix accurate to within 400 meters. The ASW coordinator aboard the Bush had the Fateh's position, course, and speed on his display with a confidence level that left no meaningful ambiguity. The Iranian submarine was now being tracked by 3 independent American sensor systems simultaneously: the P-8A's sonobuoy field, the MH-60R's AQS-22 dipping sonar, and USS Texas's hull-mounted passive sonar. She had been found, was being tracked, and had no corresponding picture of the American assets prosecuting her. The Fateh's commanding officer knew an active sonar had found him. He did not know about the Texas. He did not know about the sonobuoy barrier he had just crossed. He was trying to evade a threat that was, in his mental picture, a helicopter dipping sonar, and he was, in doing so, running directly into the coverage of two sensor systems he had no indication even existed in his vicinity. At 11:04 p.m., USS Texas went active. A Virginia-class submarine's AN/B QQ-10 in active mode, transmitting from 200 meters depth directly below the Fateh's position, produces an acoustic event that the Iranian crew would have experienced not as a sound, but as a physical sensation. A pressure pulse traveling through the water and through the submarine's hull, unmistakable in its character and terrifying in what it implied. The Texas's active transmission confirmed her position to the Fateh's crew with absolute clarity. An American nuclear submarine was directly below them, had been tracking them, and had just announced its presence with the specific acoustic signal that submarine commanders worldwide recognize as the final step before weapons employment. The Fateh's commanding officer had been a naval officer for 19 years. He had studied submarine warfare doctrine at the Iranian Naval Academy. He had practiced emergency procedures for ASW prosecution in exercises that attempted, with limited fidelity, to simulate exactly this scenario. None of that preparation had fully prepared him for the reality of a Virginia-class fast attack submarine announcing its presence from directly beneath his keel in the middle of the Gulf of Oman at 11:04 p.m., with the carrier strike group's full ASW architecture already having built a complete track on his boat from above. He ordered the submarine to the surface. The IRIS Fateh broke the surface at 11:09 p.m., 5 minutes after the Texas's active transmission. Navigation lights came on as she surfaced, the universal maritime signal of a vessel operating in non-threatening mode on the surface. The MH-60R Seahawk from the Northern Sector Patrol was overhead within 4 minutes, its spotlight illuminating the Fateh's sail against the dark water as the helicopter crew documented the surfacing in high-definition video. The P-8A Poseidon descended to 4,000 feet for imagery collection. USS Texas surfaced 800 meters from the Fateh, her black sail emerging from the Gulf of Oman with the particular authority that a Virginia-class nuclear submarine carries simply by existing in proximity to a vessel that has just been comprehensively defeated in its primary tactical mission. The USS Halsey, DDG-97, was directed by the ASW coordinator to close the Fateh's position and establish visual contact. Halsey came alongside the surfaced Iranian submarine at 11:31 p.m. The destroyer's bridge team and the Fateh's commanding officer communicated on the International Maritime Frequency. The conversation was professional in tone. The Fateh's commanding officer identified his vessel and stated his crew's condition. No casualties, no mechanical emergency. The Halsey's commanding officer acknowledged and advised the Iranian vessel to maintain its current position pending instructions from his command authority. The conversation between CTF-53 in Bahrain and the relevant Iranian Naval Command Authority took place over the next 40 minutes on established military-to-military communication channels. The direct links that U.S. and Iranian military forces have maintained since the implementation of the 2015 JCPOA era protocols, specifically to prevent incidents at sea from escalating through miscommunication. The conversation was not heated. It was, on both sides, the professional communication of military officers who understood exactly what had happened and what the options were. The Fateh was in international waters. She had not fired. She had not achieved a weapons employment position. Her commanding officer had made the correct decision to surface when the tactical situation made continued evasion futile and the risk of miscalculation catastrophic. The outcome of the conversation was agreement that the Fateh would be permitted to transit back toward the Strait of Hormuz under her own power, with the USS Halsey maintaining visual contact until she was clear of the strike group's operating area. The Fateh began her transit northwest at 12:14 a.m., running on the surface with navigation lights on, the Halsey trailing 2 nautical miles behind. The transit to the Hormuz approach took 6 hours. USS Texas remained submerged and tracked the Fateh acoustically for the first 4 hours of the transit before being released to resume her own patrol. The P-8A logged fuel and returned to base. The MH-60R crews recovered aboard the Bush 8 and were back on the ASW schedule for the next rotation. The IRIS Fateh arrived at the Bandar Abbas Naval Base on the Iranian coast at 7:22 a.m. Her commanding officer filed his operational report honestly, as professional naval officers in most services do regardless of the outcome, because an inaccurate operational report is more dangerous to the institution than an embarrassing but accurate one. The report documented the acoustic detection by the AQS-22, the subsequent loss of acoustic advantage when he increased speed, the Texas's active transmission, and the decision to surface. It documented the engagement geometry at the moment of detection and the tracking by multiple American sensor systems simultaneously. It documented everything that had gone wrong and why. Iranian Naval Headquarters read the report and understood its implications. The IRGC Aerospace Force and the regular Iranian Navy have, over the past decade, built a submarine force doctrine premised on the idea that the Gulf of Oman's difficult acoustic environment, the stratification, the thermoclines, the biological noise of the Arabian Sea, provides sufficient natural concealment to enable Iranian submarines to approach American carrier groups, gather intelligence, and in a conflict scenario employ weapons before being detected. The Fateh's operational report was the most detailed real-world assessment ever produced of whether that doctrine worked against the actual American ASW architecture currently deployed in the region. The conclusion was not favorable to the doctrine. The AQS-22 dipping sonar penetrates the thermocline. The P-8, a sonobuoy barrier, covers the approach sectors that submarine doctrine uses. The Virginia-class fast attack submarine operates in the deep cold layer where Iranian submarines are not looking. And the cooperative ASW network that links helicopter, maritime patrol aircraft, and fast attack submarine into a single shared picture produces a tracking capability that is qualitatively different from any of those sensors operating individually. The Iranian commanding officer had exploited the acoustic environment skillfully. He had positioned well. He had gone quiet at the right time. And he had been found anyway, tracked by 3 systems he didn't know were there. Held at weapons quality track quality for 25 minutes before the Texas announced the situation, and surfaced without having come within practical weapons employment range of the carrier he was trailing. The Bush continued her transit of the Gulf of Oman and entered the North Arabian Sea the following morning, her crew's sleep schedules disrupted by nothing more than the normal demands of sustained carrier operations. The Gulf of Oman, like the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz, and the waters around the Arabian Peninsula generally, remains water where American carrier strike groups operate when they choose to operate there. Iranian submarine doctrine says that should not be possible. The IRIS Fateh's operational report says the doctrine needs revision. The revision is going to take longer than the next American carrier's transit schedule. Bye for now.